Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep podcast. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode. This show is all about the world of first-person shooters, their legacies, their lineage, and the people who keep that world turning. It is the will of the drowned god Cathala that our communities band together to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity. What's up, keepers of the faith? It is I, your friendly neighborhood Motherlode. This week we've got a really cool guest. It is the return of Hakita. I think he's the fastest returning guest we've ever had. Like, who else has returned? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Point is, Hakita's on the show. We're catching up since since the last time we had him on the show, he's become, an employee of New Blood, and Ultrakill's become this gigantic, super fucking awesome thing that everybody's talking about on the internet. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk that old Motherlode knew what the hell he was talking about? But I did, and now you can check out the demo for Ultrakill on Steam, the new and improved Prelude. It's been polished up and, just spit shined the hell out of by, Dave and the boys over at New Blood, as well as, Hakita working his ass off. And here we're going to talk about, just what's changed, all for the better, in my opinion, and what he has on his mind for the future of the game as we, move into, early access. And it's always a pleasure to catch up with Hakita, just talk to him. It's not just the game stuff, but, like music and movies and art in general, just everything. We're going to learn a whole lot about Ultrakill that you probably didn't know before. So sit back, strap in, get ready for a wild ride. This is me and Hakita. Before we get started, I do want to say that this music that you're about to hear is from a chapter of Ultrakill that you haven't seen yet, probably. So, listen up, enjoy it, and when it's over, we will be in the keep with Hakita. How have you been?
All right, being very busy because of all the stuff that's been going on with New Blood recently.
So that's mind-blowing to me that happened so quickly. Like I didn't even know it was gonna happen until Dave told me on the podcast when I had him on. And
yeah, it's been happening had been happening for a pretty long time by then, but it was kept sort of under wraps, for the most part.
Don't want to play your cards too early or whatever, but yeah, that was really cool to hear that you kind of got exactly what you wanted. It seems like. So how do you feel? Like, what's changed in your day to day?
Well, not much, honestly. It's mostly the same, except I just have a lot more help for whenever I need it, because the New Blood guys help me out with the game whenever I ask for help. And I have to worry a lot less about marketing since Dave takes care of all that. So luckily I can just focus on the game itself.
I guess where I want to kind of start with it is, how has the game itself sort of changed, maybe creatively? What is their influence you're getting from these guys? Are they giving you good advice, you feel like, or is it like you're totally free to just do whatever the fuck you want? I'm curious.
They haven't said anything like I have to do something so far, so everything has just been suggestions given to me, and for the most part they're good ideas, because you probably played the updated version of the demo, and you can probably tell that it's a pretty big improvement on the previous version.
So what, in your opinion, what are the improvements?
Oh, mostly sort of in terms of level design, it's a lot more interesting visually, even though it's still continuing the sort of monochrome orange style that I wanted to use for the prelude. But there's a lot more detail going on. Then there's a lot more. There's more like things that make it clearer. Because like the doors used to just be gray, now they have like green lights on them, and like all the their whole pacing has been tightened up a lot more, so the arenas are shorter and the game flows much nicer.
I think that about sums it up from what I could tell. It just like it feels so clean and crisp now. I was actually kind of blown away. Like when I first booted it up, the demo, I literally just expected exactly the same thing as before, and yeah, I was like, wow, man, this is so much better than I remember, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, it's sort of it's been a recurring thing in the development so far that I keep feeling like, okay, this is the best it can get, and I'll just keep going like this. But then I keep going back and improving things over and over, and sort of haven't found the ceiling for quality yet.
Dave's amazing. He's an interesting guy. He's like so charismatic. I didn't realize this when I had him on the show, but he is like a big pro wrestling fan, and I'm also a big pro wrestling fan, and he actually has that kind of vibe, like that over the top like personality vibe, where he like seems like he's putting on like almost a bit of a performance, but it's really cool to like.
You might think it's a performance, but I can promise you it is not.
No, I just mean like it's his personality. He's like an over the top, larger than life kind of character. He's got that vibe about him.
Yeah, he's definitely a character, and it really helps with sort of the public, because as a sort of face for New Blood, I think he fits perfectly. Because most of the games are a bit more subdued, but their spirit is sort of shared among everyone, and they're all really nice people. But Dave is sort of the like if everything was dialed to 200%, that would be Dave.
Yeah, if you formed like Voltron, he would just be the head of Voltron. Yeah. So, like, who is helping you specifically work on the game? There's a lot of great guys and great devs over there. I saw some really nice polish on those guns.
How's that?
I thought the guns were like excellent. And did you tweak the sounds at all for the demo?
I think I did, yeah. At least for the revolver, I don't remember about the shotgun.
Okay.
For the revolver, I added a new impact sound because Dave was saying that the revolver didn't feel as impactful as it should.
But like, who's put hands on the game at this point? Like, as far as the people that are helping you.
Well, mostly I'm just doing everything still, except for like all the models and stuff that are still done by people that are working on the game, like outside of New Blood. But sort of like for the most part, what I get out of New Blood is sort of suggestions, advice, and like general help if I need something. And mostly it's just mostly it's Dave sort of as we go do run-throughs of the game, and we'll discuss like how he feels about the game and what we could tighten up and stuff, because Dave is really good at spotting out sort of flaws and little things that could be improved.
Yeah, I think you're just like on such an interesting little journey like right now. It's really cool to kind of watch this happen from the other side. So one thing that I was like kind of wondering about is you posted a little while ago, I think you posted a picture of like a almost phallic looking building, and you were talking about how like, we talked about this before, how the game is sort of a Dante's Inferno kind of allegory. And so you're gonna each set of levels, each episode, or I don't know what you're calling it, but these are gonna be like the 9 rings of hell.
Yeah,
if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. So having really polished up the first episode, how do you see the next several of them kind of fleshing out, and order wise and theme wise? Because it seems like you had a really nice concept as far as like representing each one of them.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but at least for the sort of first act, which is the first 3 layers, it's the ideas have sort of already been fit into place, so it's just about execution at this point. And then after that's done, we'll get the game out in early access, and then I'll start thinking about the later layers.
So it's all just a concept at this point, and you're
flying.
You're flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, because I prefer improvising, because a lot of people sort of think way too far ahead, and then they end up not getting anything done. So I'm just I really only think about what's happening now and in the very near future, and that's just letting ideas sort of come naturally, and I think that gives it a sort of organic flow.
So this is like mostly solitary for you? You're just like hanging out at the house, doing some coding, polishing some things up, and then kind of reporting back like weekly or something, getting feedback from Dave, and then going right back into it. Is this a full-time gig at this point, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't have anything better to do.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, but like daily, it's sort of, I mean, like I do work on it pretty much every day, though I do take a couple break days every now and then, but it's mostly sort of, most of my work time is sort of half working on it. So it's like I'll be working on it, and then I'll check on like Twitter and stuff, and I'll work on it and go back and forth like that.
It's so much better of a work pace than just like, okay, here's our 8 hours, and we're going to start at 8 a.m. and end at 4 and all that. That's nonsense. I feel like kind of the same way, where I get a lot more done if I'm just kind of free to like do it when I feel like it.
Yeah, there's been like experiments, I think, where reduced work hours actually increase productivity, so you get more out of less time because people are more motivated to work, and they don't run out of steam like halfway through a workday.
Yeah, if you can kind of like take it's a separation between, I don't know how it is there, but in France and Spain are kind of like this, where you get a really long lunch break in the middle of the day, and then you come back. In America, we're very like just push through, get it done. It's like almost you're praised if you just skip lunch and get it all done, and that kind of thing. I don't know. We don't really value relaxation, or I'd say pacing yourself as much.
Yeah, that's something luckily I've been able to avoid, since I haven't had a quote unquote real job ever. So I'm just sort of working whenever I feel like I can get something done. And sometimes that means I don't get much done like in a day, and sometimes it means I'll work 10 hours in a row.
Yeah, I mean, if that works for you, that works for you. It's definitely paying off, dude. Like, nobody can say that you're not doing exactly what you set out to do at this point. Like, you've manifested your own destiny. You grabbed life by the horns and you rode the bull, and now you have to stay on for the 8 seconds. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's mostly luck.
I don't know. Do you think that? Do you believe that it's like a luck thing entirely?
Not entirely, of course, but like I do think it's largely been luck so far, because I haven't really, like, outside of just working on the game, I haven't really done much in terms of like trying to get it out there, but it sort of has been organically spread around and has been working out for some reason so far. And I kind of feel bad because there are so many indie games that I think are much cooler, but they never really reach an audience.
I think you're just the right guy for the job. Like, I know of several other games that I could very easily compare to your game, and some of them are really fucking awesome. But, having touched around and felt around a little bit and gotten my idea of what the landscape is, I think you're just the right guy for the job. Like, you put out this vibe, and your work ethic speaks for itself. That's something that, Dave said a lot, was like, it's not just that, your game is awesome, it's that you felt like a good fit. Like, you have a pace and a work ethic and a vision that speaks for itself. And
yeah, when I got into like the New Blood Internal, it was just like an immediate fit. That like I felt like I was just right at home already without having to like get used to it at all.
That's beautiful.
Except for like the fact where these people have like experience in the industry, so they were like sometimes they're just talking about like someone, and I'm just like, who? Never heard of this guy.
I go through it a lot. It's younger too, and I get people that bring up some like, oh, do you know so and so? He was the character designer on XYZ game from 2003, and I'm like, no, I don't fucking know what you're talking about. Got no, that's crazy. But I've like, I don't know, over time, just doing this show, I've learned so much, and then I almost feel I get like imposter syndrome when I'm talking about someone, and people like assume that I've known this all my life, and I'm like, no, I just learned about this guy like yesterday, or I learned about this game like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And there's a lot I get that a lot as well, because there's a lot of people who sort of assume that like everything that in Ultrakill has been sort of a good example is the whole shotgun self-parry thing, which is really popular now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in Ultrakill, if you punch right after you shoot, you can punch your own shotgun projectiles to make them go faster. And like a lot of people are like, oh, you're such a genius for coming up with that. But nah, that was a bug. That was a bug, but I just made it a feature because it was cool.
No, that's probably the coolest thing about this game. And it kind of, I don't know, it seemed to go under the radar for me. Like the first time we talked, the extent of how much you could really play around with this game. And it's funny that you say it was an accident, because there's how many different examples of like accidents that you made features can you give?
Well, let me think. At least the most recent, like there's a couple things that I don't even understand, but the speedrunner guys understand, because there's something called super slide jump shot into SSJ, which is it's sort of like a one frame trick where you can get the speed of a dash jump, but without using any stamina. And it's something to do with slopes. I have no idea. So that's a thing. But then more sort of more official, I guess, stuff like there's a technique called slam storage, which is if you do a ground slam while you're near a wall and then you wall jump, you will like reset your momentum, but you will still keep the slam state. So once you hit the floor, you're still slamming, and then when you jump, you get like a really high jump because of how much airtime you had with the wall jump. And just like it's stuff like that where it's sort of usually things that start out as bugs, and then I just try to keep them in, even if I change some stuff. Because I recently changed some stuff about how the slamming works, but I wrote into the code like a special exception to still make the slam storage possible.
When you were designing the different movement aspects of the game, did you have like an ideal, this is how someone would move and play the game, or was it more like I just want to have these particular features and then we'll see how people get creative with it? Yeah,
it was just like, because I'm really not like an expert in terms of designing FPSs, so a lot of these sort of community has been very helpful in finding the direction that Ultrakill has sort of organically gotten into. But it was just like starting off, I just wanted to give people as many options as possible so that everyone can find their sort of own play style, where it's like, oh, some people really like sliding, some people really like dashing, some people really like jumping around a lot and stuff like that. So I just wanted to keep things as open as possible so that everyone can sort of, because a big part of what I really love about especially fighting games is sort of player expression, which is that even if you have 10 players playing the same character, they all play the same character differently because of sort of the choices and actions that they do, like what kind of moves they use and what kind of strategies they use. So I tried to sort of apply that to Ultrakill as well, so that you have a lot of freedom to find your own style in the game.
Yeah, Ultrakill sort of made me kind of self-conscious when I was playing it, because I just felt like there's so much freedom in the movement, and every time I would make a mistake or I would die, I would think like I must be doing something wrong. And I'm sure over time we're going to see people come up with like the ideal, like fastest, most efficient way to move. People figure things out all the time. Maybe we'll never get to the exactly to the tip top of that mountain, but definitely we're going to see people who are really good at the game, when play it online and stream it as they play through the whole thing and go to higher and higher difficulties.
Yeah, there's a pretty amazing speedrunning community already. It's like they're very active already, even though it's just a demo. So it's been very fun to follow that sort of evolve over time and how certain things have affected it. Because I've been so the way I deal with speedrunning is sort of I try to keep any bugs that are bugs that can't happen on accident. I try to keep them in so the speedrunners can still take advantage of them. But sometimes there's still just like stuff that sort of I can't keep in, because there used to be an out of bounds glitch, but when I added a crouch state, that ended up not being possible anymore. So it's not like, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, but basically just like I try to keep a lot of the tricks that speedrunners use, but sometimes it's just not possible without having to redesign whole things, and I'm just like, it's not worth that much work to keep like one out of bounds bug in.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you're kind of, what's the term? You're chasing a red herring or wild goose chase kind of thing. Like you don't have to worry about that kind of shit. Like those people are gonna find it anyway, and they're gonna exploit it. And if you try to like make it walled in and stuff, it's just gonna drive you insane. So
yeah,
and you've been very generous. Like you've been very cool about like, I want people to kind of exploit it, and you've like gone out of your way to try to make it a better experience. So that's more than you could say for most AAA devs. Even they don't give a fuck about that. So
yeah, well, the game is sort of inherent in a lot of aspects. The game is sort of inherently broken, and that helps sort of because you get a lot of sort of footage of like bugs and stuff on Twitter and YouTube and stuff, and most people don't really seem to mind because it's just the tone of the game sort of allows for that. Whereas like if it was a serious game, like a tragedy or something, and then you fall out of bounds, you'd be mad. But in this case, it's just like, oh, that's silly.
So what's been your experience just generally having more attention on you, like online, when you've like you go from being relatively unknown to, I think it really started when probably G-Man started covering the game, and then you just had this influx of followers, and then now that you're with New Blood, it's just like you're just constantly all over the place, getting posted everywhere. Are you feeling that at all, or do you generally kind of like stand back? What's your kind of style with dealing with attention?
I don't really like. I think it might come off as pretty egotistical, but I don't really notice it that much. Like it feels sort of it's been a natural progression so far, where it's like there wasn't like a single moment where it's like, okay, now I'm big. It's sort of been a gradual, and really the only thing I noticed is that I spend a lot more time on like Twitter and Steam and Discord to keep answering people's questions and trying to keep up with suggestions and bugs and stuff.
Do you enjoy that aspect of it?
Depends. Sometimes it really gets to you when it's like you read the 20th like bug report of the day and it's just like, fuck, I don't want to deal with any of this. But then like you get a lot of people who are like really passionate about the game, and especially when I get fan art, it's just always like, it's always such a motivation boost to see how much people really like a little weird project of yours.
It is such a artistically interesting game that I'm really excited to see, because this always happens with New Blood's games. Is you put out a game with a character that's kind of nondescript, and then it seems like the community tends to like totally describe it. And you're an interesting case because you seem like you had a pretty clear vision of like what the lore of the story would be, and it's gonna be fun to watch the community kind of tie it all together, or at least try to like draw connections, and even potentially start making up shit that you never even thought of. Like they're gonna like make connections, and it's like when somebody tries to figure out what the meaning of a movie is, and they're like, well, I think so and so, and that's really just good art. It inspires a lot of thought and a lot of interpretation.
Yeah, because the way that sort of Ultrakill's story has branched out is that I sort of figured out the initial sort of theme or idea that I want to explore with the game story. So I sort of try to fit. I try to make like I add all these different ideas all over the place, and then I try to connect dots into that one single sort of idea or theme. So I try to sort of I don't know, but it's like I try to keep it open enough still that like people can really find whatever they want out of the game because well not anything but it's like so that there's room for interpretation because I think people will enjoy the story more if they can sort of see themselves in it more than just here's a story that I wanted to tell and here's exactly what it means.
Yeah, I was literally yesterday I was playing the original Half-Life again just to kind of I don't know, put myself in that mindset for some stuff I got to do later. And I don't know, like that, it doesn't age well, like that whole on rails thing and like it feeling like I am this character and I have to just be fed this story the whole time and not being able to constantly engage in the action. I don't know, it just didn't hit me in the same way that something like, you know, any other first person shooter that we talk about on the show, specifically yours. Yeah, being able to put yourself in the shoes of the main character and like, I don't know, like not having it defined for you is, for me anyway, like, and I think a lot of the people that enjoy this genre, that's just how we like it. You know, it's better that way. And that's a big criticism I had of the new Doom is that, I don't know, I felt like they were giving me too much and I just wanted like.
Yeah. I definitely felt that as well. And that's definitely like, when I was playing Doom Eternal, I love the game, but I wish it told me less because it feels like it was just giving me so much stuff that I didn't want to know. I like things being ambiguous, so I can sort of like I can still like think, oh, maybe it's this thing I like, and not just like, oh, it's this thing, but I don't really like that thing. So, but especially with Ultrakill, something I've always been trying to keep up is to even though the game has a story and it has like lore and stuff, I always try to keep it so that you can, if you want, you can very easily ignore all that and you can just play for the gameplay and you won't miss out on like you won't feel like you're missing out.
Yeah, that's completely true. I don't know why, man. Ultrakill, I feel it's probably because I live in like my little echo chamber of like the games that I care about. But I like it so much more than Doom Eternal. It's insane. And people get mad at me. Like, stop comparing everything to Doom Eternal. I'm like, well, that's supposed to be like, you know, infamously G-Man was like, this is going to set the bar for all first person shooters to come. And then we get that was a cool thing that happened where people really compared your game. Like, this is like the boomer shooter version of Doom Eternal. And I feel like that's not even fucking fair. Your game is so cool. And Doom Eternal, like, I don't know, it didn't resonate the same way with me.
Yeah, it's Doom Eternal is very interesting, and I think more than just it being a good game, which it is. Yeah, I think it's more like because of how far it strays from the usual shooter formula. I think it's like easily one of the most respectable games that come out in like a while, especially FPS games, because just like it was so willing to take so many risks, and I think it's really paid off even like in the end because it does have a very unique style to it and a very unique approach to combat in it. And I don't think it's really unfair to compare Ultrakill to Doom Eternal. Like, it does slightly annoy me when people say it's in like Doom Eternal on a budget or something, because that kind of comes off as like like they're saying that it's kind of like it's not as good as Doom Eternal, but you know it's kind of it's cheap. So that kind of does slightly annoy me, but I understand the comparison because really Doom Eternal and Ultrakill are the closest, like in terms of style and the way the combat flows and works.
Yeah, I can see the comparisons in it. I understand where all that comes from, but I don't know. I think what you got going on is pretty awesome. And as you said before, it draws influence from a lot of other things that are popular in the indie scene that people haven't really, like, there's the people who dive into that stuff, like, you're part of it, and I'm also kind of part of it. But the vast majority of people, they don't really see stuff until it comes into the limelight, like the mainstream kind of way that people see games. So when it's being, pushed through marketing that they're used to seeing and all that, they see it then and not before. So I've really kind of been on this kick lately, right? Like when you signed on with New Blood, I knew at that point that Ultrakill is going to be like the benchmark of this type of game for a lot of people. It's going to introduce them to this style shootery, like PSX graphics thing that you've got going on that a lot of people are not aware, unless they've been following the itch.io crowd, that like the horror and indie game crowd. So I don't know, it's going to start like a wave of kind of, I don't want to say mimicking games, but it's going to, a lot of these other games that you've mentioned, like that are, kind of the same ilk, will have a place in this kind of mainstream media. Like they'll be drawing comparisons. Like if you like Ultrakill, then maybe you'll like this. And I don't know, I think it's going to set a bar. It's going to be really cool.
I think that would be really cool. I just like, if there are going to be people that are sort of trying to use Ultrakill as a source of inspiration, I just hope that they sort of find their own voice in it, because Ultrakill is a very specific kind of balance that, or like, even for me, it's not really something I can put into words, but it sort of comes naturally as a feel thing. Like I can, something that I've been noticing a lot is sort of people, when people try to contribute to Ultrakill, like if I'm not directly sort of aiding them or giving them direction, oftentimes it ends up leaning too far into one direction. For an example, someone like gives an idea, and it's like, oh, it would be cool if this and this, and it's like, yeah, but that doesn't feel Ultrakill. So I like, if there are people who are gonna be making their own style shooters and such, I hope that they'll sort of find their own voice in it and making their own version of it, rather than trying to sort of copy what not what, but how Ultrakill did it. So more like just use the same ideas and mechanics, but like give it your own spin or something.
Well, like one that really stands out to me in particular was Effigy. I actually had Nate on the show a few episodes back, and that game is so unique and on its own, and not the only comparison I draw, with Ultrakill is that it has like the advanced movement mechanics. Obviously, it's a first-person shooter, and then that same graphical style. But otherwise, totally unique, different kind of thing. And the two are like, it's not like he looked at Ultrakill like, I want to make a game like that. It's like he made his own thing kind of simultaneously with you introducing Ultrakill to the world. And I just think that when Ultrakill, as it does continue to become super popular and introduce people to that kind of like, when they see that graphic style, when they see that movement style, and they see another game that looks like that, and I'm not talking about people who are making it because you inspired them. I'm talking about opening up the floodgates of what is already a pretty healthy scene of games like this. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I do hope that people will be able to, because like sort of take ideas from Ultrakill at least, because it's because of the sort of approach of giving as many tools as possible to the player. I think there's a lot you can sort of take from Ultrakill and then fit into a more specific kind of experience. And I would be really interested in seeing sort of how people adapt these kinds of weird nonsense ideas I keep having, and sort of making them fit into their own different games.
Yeah. It's just so surreal, man. Because I remember when I first saw Ultrakill, like, I'm usually just kind of browsing around, like, oh, what's new in the retro shooter, world? And your game was so like not on my radar, and then I can't remember. I think it was Smango from QuakeFans.net. It's like, man, you should try this out, you know. And I thought nothing of it. I'm like, this will just be another one of these indie games that I tried out, and I have no problem with that. I love interviewing just like whoever. It's great, and I don't care about your fame or how many hits the video is going to get because of you or whatever. Like, that's nice to have, and it's always great when that happens. But the truth is, I just really am interested in people. And then when I first played the game, I mean, I had a really great conversation with you, and I connected with you like in a way that like, oh man, this guy's really cool. But I didn't really get your game, you know, the way that I do now. Like when I played it again the second time, it just like took on a whole new meanings for me. It really clicked in every way.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is how much the New Blood guys have helped me direct the game, because it's always been a vague sort of feeling that Ultrakill is, and it's like, but they sort of helped me direct it more specifically and make it clear to other people what the game is trying to be and what it should be. So I think it's like, especially with the response I've been getting to the new Steam demo, it's people are much more responding much more clearly to sort of the game and the ideas it's putting down and stuff like that. So I think a big part of that is thanks to the New Blood guys helping me find the direction, the very specific sort of goal that this game should have.
You're a musician, and so like, when you play, what's your main instrument? What do you play the most? Probably guitar or
whatever. I'm more into the writing music than I am playing it.
Okay. So when you sit down to write a song, do you sort of like improvise with different things until you reach something that sounds good to you, or do you approach it with a plan?
It really depends. Sometimes I sort of just have it in my head and I try to put it down, and then usually it ends up being a bit different, but then I'm like, oh, actually, what if I keep taking this into this different direction instead, and sort of I keep just mutating the original idea until it's something completely different. But sometimes I just have to go in and I start something, it's like, nah, this isn't what I want, and then I try something else, and nah, this isn't what I want. And sometimes it just takes so sometimes the best way to get like something good is to sort of try to challenge yourself in some way, because currently the most popular unreleased song for Ultrakill was actually started because I couldn't really find a good sound for the Lust layer. But then what I ended up doing, I was like, okay, I'll just try doing uncommon time signatures. I'll do a song in mostly 5x8 or something, and then it sort of started to just flow out from like that creative challenge. And then it ended up becoming a bit of a meme where people were making some memes about how I'm like a Gollum because I keep keeping the song to myself instead of releasing it to the wild.
It's really going to be fun to see people play, because when you have like a game with movement like this, people tend to get into a rhythm and like kind of like nod their head to the music as they play. It's such a big part of it, at least to me. And it's gonna be funny that you change the time signature in the gameplay. I bet you people play and move in a different way. I bet you they like change their play style based on what music you play and what time signature is going.
I like the way it sort of the way at least in that one specific example, which was that one Lost song, it sort of flows in a natural way still, where it's not like the time signature changes are abrasive. It's more like the way that sort of classic game soundtracks used to use time signature changes, where it sort of has a natural flow to it that just kind of feels right. So
yeah,
I don't know.
The way you dance to like EDM, like doot, doot, like 4/4 time, and then when you dance to a waltz, like you can't help it. It's just naturally it changes your flow of movement. You can't do it any other way. It's a natural response for people. And you said what 5/8 time. That's probably pretty easy to translate for most people, but I feel like if you really fucked with them, you could like pull some brain tricks. We would probably have to bring in some like scientists from MIT or some shit to like really do the experiment.
There's some pretty fucky stuff there because the thing is, it's not in 5/8 entirely. What it is, it's like 3 measures in 5/8 and then 1 in 6/8 and then back to 5/8 and then 1 in 7/8 or something. So it's constantly switching between time signatures to keep a sort of flow going.
Yeah,
and
sounds like a System of a Down song or some shit.
I don't know. Do System of a Down change time signatures often?
I feel like they did for a while, and they kind of found their thing. But they do have pretty good examples of like changing the time signature a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely possible because they do definitely. Because when you think of like bring your own bombs, it's like it has a lot of different sections that are very clearly separated.
Yeah.
So I haven't really paid attention, but maybe they do change time signatures as well.
Listen to the song Radio Video. I think that's a pretty good example of how they constantly have these different ever-changing ways that they kind of do the same verse and chorus switch, but they change the style of it almost every time they do it. So, yeah. I don't really know. I'm not a fucking scholarly musician. I'm a jazz blues guy. I'm very improvisational, so I can really relate to that part of how your brain works. Like when I sit down to play the guitar, I don't have like a symphony. I don't think about it like that. I just think about like I start playing a scale and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And that sounds good. We'll put that in the song. That's always kind of how I've dealt with it.
Yeah.
I learned from teaching myself. I was like autodidact learner, not a classically trained musician.
Yeah. And like, especially with a lot of the recent tracks, because I've sort of kind of halfway through development, I changed the sort of direction I went with the music. Because in the prelude, it's very sort of riff based. It's like, here's a riff, here's a second riff, here's a third riff. It's sort of based on these sort of repetitions of sort of general riffs. There's not really any melody in there. But then it was around level 1-3 where I'm like, I wanna change this into like, I wanna go Castlevania, and then I just started sort of focusing a lot more on melody and sort of chords and stuff, and I think it has made the soundtrack a lot more interesting in the recent levels and way more memorable and catchy.
Yeah, send me an example of that for the episode music. That sounds dope. Like I want to kind of like compare it front to back.
Yeah, remind me after this, and I'll send you one.
Yeah.
Like sort of. Oh yeah, no. I remember specifically the moment that I decided to change the direction, which was when I found the soundtrack to the original Rise of the Triad.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, from Civi's theme song. When somebody says music and Rise of the Triad, I just think Civi's theme song every time.
Yeah, but it's like, I think I don't remember how I ended up, but like at some point I was thinking of Havana Smooth. I think it was in one CD video.
Yeah.
I think it was the Alien Resurrection one, and I was just like thinking about that, and I was talking with soundtracks with someone else, and I was like, I open up like the full album Rise of the Triad music and whatever on YouTube, and I skip to a spot. I'm like, wow, this is really good, and then I skip to a different random spot. I'm like, wow, this is really good, and it's like wherever you skip on the soundtrack, you're always gonna end up on something really good and really catchy, and that was like an immediate moment where I was like, okay, I need to try to get this into Ultrakill because while the music in Ultrakill, it fits, it wasn't really very memorable.
I could see that. Yeah, the opening track is really like that to me. When I hear that, I hear it's Ultrakill. Like it really sits there. But I see what you're saying, especially when you're comparing like those Bobby Prince, like almost jazz songs from Rise of the Triad, or they just totally stand out.
Rise of the Triad is mostly Lee Jackson. Bobby Prince did a couple of tracks, but almost the end. Like Bobby Prince did like 8, and then Lee Jackson did like 30.
Oh shit! Okay.
So that's mostly him, which is like it's bizarre to me how little attention Lee Jackson has gotten compared to Bobby Prince.
I'm glad
Because
you just told me that because I
yeah,
would just.
he's actually releasing a new album right now, so be on a lookout for that because it sounds really good.
Hell yeah.
But like, yeah, that was sort of just like in general, that was like a moment where I'm like, because the thing is, if I kept with the original direction, eventually the music would just be getting sort of tired. Like it's like, oh, here's this again and here's this again. And with Ultrakill, I want to have as many different ideas and directions available as possible, so that it's sort of constantly evolving, constantly changing as the sort of arenas and visuals of the game changes. And sort of actually, I kind of weird thing that I wanted to do with Ultrakill is to sort of have accessible experimental music, which is I want to include parts of like all kinds of weird experimental genres and add them to the music in a way where it's sort of accessible to most people. Because in specific, something that I was thinking about a while back is how whenever you ask people about like what are the best soundtracks ever, obviously they give all the standard answers like Castlevania and stuff. But a lot of people say Silent Hill, and you listen to Silent Hill soundtrack, and it's music that most of these people would never enjoy if it weren't in a game.
Yeah.
So the way this it takes this extreme dark ambient noise, industrial stuff, and it makes that accessible thanks to like the context that it's in. So I'm trying to sort of put all these weird um, sort of genres like noise and industrial and like progressive rock and like minimalism and stuff, and I'm trying to make those accessible to like a general audience, so that hopefully people will sort of be able to find all kinds of new cool music thanks to first experiencing a sort of streamlined version or like a light version of it on the Ultrakill soundtrack.
So this is all the whole point of this game is for you to just bring music to the people.
Well, it's not the
elaborate
whole
plot
point.
to psychologically plant it into our brain.
Well, I mean, like half of the things that the game has are references to music, so kind of, but you know, there's a good game there too.
So what like can you give a specific example of like what in the game is a reference to music?
Oh, there's so many. Already in the demo, we have, for an example, there's Heart of the Sunrise, which is 1-1. That's a reference to a Yes song. We have the standard husk is called a Filth, and that's a reference to the Swans album from 1983, I think. And then the Grey husks are called Schisms, which is the Tool song.
Yeah.
And then the purple drones are called drones because that's a reference to drone music, which is a technique in especially experimental music, which is a long single sustained note or chord. Then we have like there's then in like the First Testament, there's a reference to a Lingua Ignota album, and it's like anything that's named in the like most things that are named in the game are named based on something that I like about like some music that I like.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's all a big subliminal message. You're really fucking people over.
Oh yeah, obviously I'm actually a mastermind, and it's all a secret plot to get people into good music finally.
Well, it's working, I guess. I feel like some people are going to listen to this and be like, "Oh yeah, I know every one of those bands," and other people are going to be like, "Who the fuck is Yes?" I'm going to go listen to that just because you said it. So we're both doing the same.
I think people know Yes at this point.
Oh, but you got to think about there's a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-old people that listen to this show. That I guarantee you don't know Yes. So they probably heard like Owner of a Lonely Heart.
No, man. They've heard Roundabout because of JoJo.
I don't. Is JoJo's the anime guy?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a really popular anime right now. Well, it has been for the last couple of years, especially in the West. But it's like, and in the first season, as the credit song, they always used Yes' Roundabout, and that's why it became a meme when you have the to be continued thing. That's from JoJo.
I feel like every time you come on the show, you're gonna leave me with something I have to go watch. Because I did. In fact, I went and watched Stalker shortly after the last time we recorded together, and man, that's a fucking good movie. You're
Yeah,
a
yeah,
man
it's
of great
good.
taste.
Now, obviously, next you have to, when we stop this podcast, you have to go watch Satan Tango.
Just send me a list. Just like when I
Nah,
remind you about the music, you send me the list of what my homework is until
nah,
next time.
I'm just like, oh yeah, you should go watch Satan Tango, and then you go on IMDb and you notice it's 7 hours long, and then you give up.
That's not going to deter me. I can get through. If it's good, I can get through a lot of shit.
It's very good, but it's also insanely slow. Like it's so slow that when I watched Satan Tango, and then after that I was rewatching Stalker for like the third time, and I was like, man, this movie is a lot faster than I remember. Maybe it should slow down a bit.
If you feel like Stalker's fast, you're going off the deep end.
Yeah, that's what I mean with Satan Tango. Like that's a movie where the average shot length is minutes.
Well, it's interesting. I've been, kind of thinking about film, and it's amazing to me. Like I don't want to say the attention span of modern society has shortened, but I think like the way that we deliver things has made us kind of manifest that. And if you go back and watch like The Godfather, I mean, like these scenes feel like forever. And Stalker is a great example of when like they're shooting, and you get these long shots of just like the grass or like the koi fish and swimming around in the water. And it's, as you were actually talking about droning music earlier, it kind of like creates that sort of hypnotic state, and we don't really get that in modern film as much.
Yeah, that's well, we do, but that's only in the sort of underground art circle.
Right.
Especially if you go watch a movie called Sleep Has Her House, which is an amazing movie, but you have to be in a very specific situation where you can watch it properly, because it is an incredibly slow movie. It is an incredibly dark movie, like visually, just purely like it is mostly black, and it is an incredibly quiet movie, and it's sort of that's the kind of sort of really interesting experiences that you can only have if you don't have something like on the radio. Because the thing about why everything is so fast now, everything has to be really snappy, and all the movies have to be quick, and all the trailers have to be 15 seconds long maximum, is because people have so many choices with what they do now. So you go on like YouTube and you see 50 recommendations, you see 3 trailers every video, and it's like at any point you can just click away and do something else. And that's why like a standard YouTube video can't be like 3 hours of a shot of mud like Stalker. And it's sort of because you have to be in a very specific environment to be able to properly get into that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see how the world has adapted to these sort of because there's a thing with especially game advertising as well, is that things have changed a lot and now if you go to what's like GDC talks, what people say is that your game, if you want to sell your game needs to be, you need to be able to show your game, like the whole main hook of your game, in 6 seconds, because it needs to be in a single GIF or GIF, if you want to say it that way. Like, because that's the kind of attention that people are giving to all things, because of how many things they are given. It's very hard to get attention because everyone's always thinking, oh, I gotta do this, and there's this, and there's, oh, look at all these things, and
I really think that might be an illusion we're like telling ourselves, because at least for me, like that's not how I interface with things at all. Like I almost always take things on reputation. Like it's got to be a word of mouth type of situation. I'm not just like looking for like, oh, that looks flashy or whatever. Like it's shiny new thing, run towards that. It's like, so that's how I found out about your game. It wasn't because like it was blowing up and everybody was talking about it. It was because someone who I really respected, a friend of mine, said you should check this out. And
but here's the thing, right? When you like look at like if you browse through like itch.io, you see a lot of games there. True. And even like the way that people originally find out about these games like because you hear it from like word of mouth, but where did that person hear it? Maybe word of mouth, maybe they just saw a small video and they're like, hey, this looks cool, right? But the whole thing is that because people are like browsing through the Steam store and they have like 700 new games in front of them, you have to be able to at least make an impression on people with like just a couple seconds.
Maybe you're right, man. You probably know more than I do. You're a big fancy game designer now. I'm just some dude.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm a game designer. I'm not a marketer, so you have to ask Dave about that.
So, what's your take on the resurgence of demos that you were caught the wave of? How do you take that?
Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because I've been on top of the wave in a way, but it's sort of been because a big part of the thing is that prior to like demo, like the reason demos originally lost their luster, why people stopped using them, is because AAA games are usually prettier than they are good to play. So you get more sales by showing your game and not letting people play them. But with indies, usually graphics are not the selling point; it's the gameplay itself,
Right.
which means that having people get their hands on it actually improves your sales because they get to experience it and they're like, "Wow, this is actually way better than it looked." Because that's a big thing with especially Ultrakill. It's a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say like, "Oh, I didn't really care about this game, but I tried it out and now it's my favorite game ever." Because it's like Ultrakill would never have gotten like nearly as much attention if not the fact that people could actually try it for themselves. Because it's definitely a game that's sold entirely by its game feel and its gameplay rather than its graphics or any cool technical achievements.
No, that's 100% true. It's like I said, it took me more than one try to like really kind of find my groove in it. But once you do, it's like doing ballet or some shit. It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's really like if whether or not your game would benefit from a demo is really entirely based on what kind of game it is. Yeah, just like well, I would say maybe there's very few games that I've tried out recently because of the Gold Steam Game Festival, and there were a couple of those that ended up being like, oh, I was originally interested, but then I played it and it wasn't anywhere near as good as I was hoping it to be. So sort of those are games that would have benefited from not having a demo because their gameplay wasn't really there yet. But luckily, I reached out to a lot of sort of indie developers that I've played the games of and had issues with, and most of them have luckily been very receptive to feedback.
Yeah, you know who to hold responsible if it's an indie game. Like, I'll just fucking email this guy or whatever, find him on Twitter. And
yeah, and there's definitely some unfortunate amount of people who are like they assume they know their game inside and out. Like obviously they made it, so it's like, oh no, I know how this game functions the best. But then people often become blind to their game's flaws. Because a thing that happened with Ultrakill, a very specific thing, like a minor example, but it's a very big thing that ended up having a major effect on the game, is that at one point, David Szymanski, which is the Dusk's developer, on Twitter was mentioning about how FPS games should have momentum in movement. And Ultrakill didn't used to have momentum. Now it has very slight momentum. But that was like something that I was like, no, obviously it has to be as responsive as possible. So it has to like not have momentum. But then once I actually put that in, it's like you realize you don't realize what you've been missing because you think you know best. But then when you actually listen to other people, you might understand like, oh, actually, other people have like this guy knew my problem that I didn't know about. And it's like, it's a lot of people unfortunately don't really listen to people because they assume that they're wrong because I don't know, whatever.
There's always two schools of thought on that. There's the people who are just like, I just want to make what I know and what I believe in, what I like, and I don't need anyone else to tell me how it's going to be, and I don't care if it sells. And then there's the people who like, are open to, taking the words of advice. Like, this could potentially make me better. Like, I'm open to changing my vision or changing what I thought.
The thing is that, especially with the people, because like I have a really strong artistic vision with Ultrakill, but you have to know that there's a difference between artistic changes and sort of technical changes, because all the things I've changed, the majority of things I've changed based on feedback on Ultrakill have been technical changes, which are improvements that don't change the vision of the game.
Right.
So like, like momentum, for an example. It's like if I were to have added like Doom momentum where it takes like half a second to stop, then like, that would have been a big change. But all I did was add like a couple frames of ease in and ease out to your movement. And that didn't change the vision of the game, but it's really improved it on a technical level.
Yeah.
So you sort of, people in general, I think indie developers should be on the lookout for sort of ideas and at least try them out. Give them a fair try and then get some feedback from people. Because
like Wolfenstein, right, had no acceleration whatsoever. It just like as soon as you touch the button, you're going full speed, and that was like making people get motion sickness.
Mm-hmm.
And then they improved that with Doom, where you had that kind of half second of building up your momentum and then slowing down.
Yeah. And like that's
a bit more human.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's like that kind of changed you. Well, you might like think like in theory, obviously, or like, oh, it's always better to have more control over your character. But then there are a lot of small aspects, sort of, for like you mentioned, like having momentum in Doom made it feel more human, and it also makes the movement feel a lot more fluid and organic, and it has a lot more weight to it. It sort of feels like you're moving instead of just like being a video game object sliding through a space.
Right. Yeah.
That's
immersive.
That's the kind of thing that a lot of indie developers unfortunately don't realize that they're missing out on by not listening to feedback. Because obviously you need to, of course, know what kind of feedback is bad feedback. You need to know what's best for your game, but like you can't just assume that the way you've done it is the best way to do it. Because that way, what you're gonna get is just like one of those games that people are like, whatever.
No, you've done it, man. You now you have to actually deliver. But I have so much faith that you will. Like you're one of the people. I talk to a lot of people on the podcast, and I love all my children equally and all that shit. But like, you're one of the guys that I'm like, this motherfucker's cool as shit. Like I really like what you do. I like the way you operate. I like your thought process, your work ethic, everything, man. I'm very proud of what you've done with this game. Just knowing that I can be in any way connected to it at all is awesome. So.
Yeah, and like just when you said that, another example popped into my mind was very early in development is that Ultrakill used to have pixel perfect hitboxes.
Yeah.
Which, obviously I was like, oh, it's a great idea because it means that, the games, you need to be accurate and it makes sense that you have to hit this and this. But then, like, sort of another person played it and he was like, I don't enjoy this because it means I can't aim on the go and I keep missing things that feels like I should have hit them. And it's like, my initial reaction was like, maybe this game just isn't for you. But then, then I tried because I was just, I need to give it a fair shake at least. And then I tried putting like bigger hitboxes on them, and it was like, yeah, this is way better. This feels so much better. And that would never, like, the game wouldn't. No one would care if it had fucking pixel perfect hitboxes because it would feel awful to play. And now, like, everything has the hitboxes on everything is twice as big as they seem, and that really helps with the flow of the game and stuff. So, remember to listen to feedback. That's the main takeaway everyone should have from this. Is just please listen to people when they talk to you.
Yeah, always be open to constructive criticism. I mean, you can always improve. Never think that you're perfect. You can always improve, man. It's that's something I struggle with a lot, just with the podcast. Like I had a fan reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I don't like it when you yammer before the show. Like I don't like it when you just say all the stuff before the show starts. I'd rather you say it after the show starts." And because I was always kind of scared, like, well, you know, if I want to push the website or whatever, I should do it before, because I feel like people, you know, are going to listen to that initial part and then get to the end. And then I realized that that's actually not the case. People want to just get straight to the interview. Like I want to hear what Hakita has to say. Fuck what you got to say, guy. And then they stick around afterwards. Like usually, you know, especially if they're being active when they're listening to something, you're more likely to fast forward through the ads at the beginning of a show.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That's what I do whenever I listen to the podcast. I skip through the beginning.
Yeah. I never even thought about it that way. But it's actually, you know, once I've heard this amazing interview with you and this guy, I'm like winding down or finishing up my run or whatever it is, and then you say, you know, like, hey, you know, thanks for checking out the show, and here's the, you know, who made the music and who, you know, did all these kind of things, and that was a huge improvement to the format of the show. So you should, yeah, you're absolutely right. Never think that your opinion is correct until you've tested it. Yeah. All right, man. I don't have anything else for you in particular. So, like, do you have any kind of last words you want to leave us with, or plugs, thank yous, anything like that?
Let's see. Well, I guess I could just chill for some games again, because now that we have the Steam Games Festival, there's a bunch of interesting games. So I guess I could mention some of those, which were obviously Gloomwood. Everyone should go play Gloomwood because it's fantastic, and it might become the best new played game. And like, it's like the thing about Gloomwood is that it's a excellent way to get into a sort of subgenre that used to be really inaccessible. Because the way that Gloomwood works, it's very simple, it's very easy to get into, but you get these sort of, you immediately understand the ideas, and sort of then you can, thanks to Gloomwood introducing them, then you can more easily get into like the classics like Thief and such. Whereas if you just try to play Thief out of nowhere, then you'd be like, what is this clunky, hunky garbage? I don't like it. So like, even if you're not into stealth games or you're not into immersive sims, you should still try Gloomwood out, because it's a very good entry point for those kinds of things. And the atmosphere is amazing, and the sound design is amazing, and, you know, it's just a great game. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a part of New Blood.
No, I agree with you 100%. I played it, and I played its demo obviously because it came out. I think I played it the same day that I played yours, like in a row. I played it first, and then I played your demo right after that. And
it's really funny. It's really funny how they've sort of become intertwined, these games. Because there was actually a while back a guy. Hold on, let me actually look him up.
What's the Civi video was Ultrawood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, there's this guy, Davey, that's at One Whole Unit on Twitter, and what he's done recently was he drew a comic that's like V1 from Ultrakill with Duck from Gloomwood together, like they've been friends, and it's sort of been this really fun sort of organic thing that happened, where it's like, because they're like complete opposites, but because of that they fit together really well, and they're sort of companion pieces in a way, completely because of how different they are.
I got to get Dylan back on the show too. I know he's like balls to the walls, busy in development and everything right now. But if you see him around,
yeah, I think he's taking a break right now, so he probably doesn't want to talk about the game.
Yeah, he was tweeting this morning like, I don't fucking hate this game. I don't even care anymore. So,
he was working so hard, like. It felt like whatever I was doing, like I was just doing something else, and then I'm just looking into the New Blood internal Discord, and it's like, oh, hey, look, it's Dylan still working on the demo. And oh boy, was it rough when PC Gamer like accidentally forgot to show the trailer.
I felt for him, man. I was like, almost wanted to like send him a private message and just be like, hey, keep your head up, kiddo. But I knew that was probably happening so much. Like, I'll just fucking let that go. Like, that was insane to me.
Yeah.
It just got railroaded.
Yeah, and it ended up actually, I don't have the numbers or anything, but I feel like it ended up like working out because of how like deep the ties are with New Blood and the community. Like
Yeah.
the
People were angry.
yeah, the amazing community response was able to not only spring back, but actually give Gloomwood more exposure than it would have had if everything had gone okay.
Yeah, because all the backlash, people were like freaking out on Twitter and like, like this is insane and posting it everywhere. And then they fucked up the website too. But then somebody made a website, they bought that domain and then redirected it to the actual website.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, the New Blood community, these are some serious fans. Those are the true, that's what Ice-T was talking about when he said, you need those people that really fuck with you. You don't need a million people to buy your record. You need a few good people to just fucking show up to the show.
Yeah. It's like if it had been like Ubisoft with like a new Assassin's Creed trailer or something, then nobody would have cared. But because of this amazing fan base and community that New Blood has, and all the fantastic content creators that are in connecting with New Blood, it's like thanks to all these people, it actually ended up going really well. So thanks to the community, thanks to all the people who keep up with New Blood.
Yeah, I'm proud to be one of them.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be in good company.
Thank you to Hakita for being on the show and also for this amazing music and for making Ultrakill. Thank you to New Blood for always being awesome and letting me indulge their amazing repertoire of developers. Also, just want to say, thank you to you guys for being amazing and listening to the show. Thank you for supporting all of our supporters. You're all fucking amazing. If you are listening and you're like, damn, this podcast is dope as shit, I'd like to support their community in some way, you can go over to inthekeep.com. That is inthekeep.com. You'll see our merch and our support tabs. You can find all sorts of ways, including our Amazon affiliate link. You can send us fucking free money on PayPal. You can become a Patreon subscriber and get some cool, interesting perks like early episodes and whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, we love you, man. It doesn't matter what you do. If you like just enjoying the show, if you're just along for the ride, you don't have anything to give, we don't need it. We're just happy to have you. Spread the word. Go check out QuakeFans.net. Go check out the USQC. Go check out the MDF. Go check out Vince Steele. And until next time, stay in the keep. Oh, and by the way, folks, big announcements coming soon. Brought to you by the Drowned God.